Welcome to the Early Edge College Football Pick Show, brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. I am your host, Eric Cohen, and we have one of the games of the year on this Week 5 slate. We'll let you know. Obviously, we're going to have picks for this one, Georgia, Alabama, later in the show. But first, let's bring in the best college football experts that I know. We have the sports bettor that I fear going against the most because I lose money, as we saw the other week. It's M squared, Mike McClure. We have the master of the FBS upset pick. Notice how I phrased that. Emory Hunt. And from the Pick Six podcast, from the land of James Madison, North Carolina, it's Chip Patterson. Sorry, Chip.
It would be better if you got the podcast right, EC. The Cover 3 podcast.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I know, man. You were so excited to get to the joke that you stumbled along the way. It's okay. My 4-year-old does the same thing. He starts running, and he's not looking at his feet, and we talk all the time. I'm like, listen, Punt, you got to watch where your feet are going. I know you're looking ahead, but you got to take it one step at a time.
You know, I tried to land the plane without putting down the landing gear, and that's what happened. So let's get right into it after I'm already 0 for 1 on the show. All right, first of all, in storylines, USC lost to Michigan, and according to our SportsLine model, USC had a 39% chance of making the CFP heading into that game, and now it's only 19% after the loss. Are you out on the Trojans as a CFP contender after that brutal loss last week? Mike, we'll start with you.
I am out on them. I know their schedule's relatively friendly, but I think they might be in way more competitive games than we might think. I am extremely concerned with what I saw against Michigan. I know it's a difficult environment on the road, but they have no offensive line here. When I look at pass blocking grades per PFF, at least there are 134 college football teams in NCAA or in the FBS here. 131st out of 134 is where USC ranks. I think they have a massive problem on the offensive line, which is simply going to require Moss to be perfect. And I think that's a tough task considering the competition that they're going to play. So they do have a lot of winnable games on the schedule. There are a few that could be pretty tough. Fortunately, they get Penn State at home. But overall, I am out because I was very unimpressed with what they were able to do with that offensive line. And frankly, they knew what was going to happen in the Michigan game and still didn't find a way to get the victory there. So I am out on USC.
I tend to agree with you, M squared. Lincoln Riley, do you trust him in big games? I know someone that does. Emory Hunt, you're still in on the Trojans.
Yeah, I feel like this was just a one-off in terms of what they saw against Michigan and Wink Martindale. And we know how he does with his defenses based off what he did in the NFL and how no one liked to play against a Wink Martindale defense. They'll run up a bunch of wins against some other opponents. A game that would force me to be out on USC would be the Penn State game, because that's another opportunity for a team that has some guys on defense that can get pressure on a quarterback consistently that can cause them to have the same issues they had against Michigan. So up until then, I'm still in on USC.
All right, Chip, you think that the schedule that USC has might play to their advantage from a CFP standpoint? How?
Well, I just think that there's still, opportunities for them to be able to go out there. I mean, this is the Penn State game that Emory just mentioned. You've got Notre Dame at the end of the year. There's still going to be places where even if they're out of the Big Ten title race, and I would feel comfortable booting them from the Big Ten title race, that they still could be that third, that fourth team from the Big Ten that ends up making it to the college football playoff. But to me, I just continue to be encouraged by the resilience of this group, because this was a USC team that in the last couple of years under Lincoln Riley, when they played ranked teams, when they got punched in the mouth, they did not come back. And at halftime, as I'm sitting there doing the halftime show at CBS Sports HQ, we're like, I guess this is over, right? You don't expect USC to come roaring back. And sure enough, they do just that with a statement opening touchdown drive. Also, I love the way that Lincoln Riley is talking about his defense. Bear Alexander, former 5-star prospect, transfer from Georgia, that played a lot last year, hasn't played as much this year. Some of the USC reporters are trying to make it a big deal, trying to stir the pot, asking him why Bear ain't playing. And you know what Lincoln Riley said? And I love this. He said, it should be hard to play defensive line at USC. He played a lot last year, and we weren't real good there. And we've gotten a lot better, and we've had some new guys come in. And so now he's still playing a third of the game, but he's not playing as much as he used to. Lincoln Riley taking pride in his defense and his defensive line. I'll say this. We've been saying that I think Lincoln Riley figured out defense before Brent Venables figured out offense. And I think that the Trojans are going to be able to use that defense to be able to play well and remain in contention.
M squared.
Yeah, I would say as far as the schedule, that the 3 games that I have identified as real potential trouble spots. The good news for USC is they do get all 3 of those games at home. It's Penn State, Notre Dame, and Nebraska. And the reason I say Nebraska is I do think Dylan Raiola is a quarterback that can compete, especially we're talking later in the year, November 16th. We've seen his process and his development already. I think he's going to continue to take steps forward there. So those are the 3 games I'm worried about, but I'm also just worried about the landscape as a whole because there's some SEC teams that have very tough schedules. And if you see a 2-loss SEC team and even just a 1-loss team here with USC, if they don't win the conference with that 1 loss here, I think that this team could be one that still gets left out over an SEC team.
All right. So, Mike, if you were to put USC, as good as they are, if you were to put them in the SEC and give them a standard SEC schedule, how many games do they win?
A standard SEC schedule, 5 to 6 this year. But if they play Georgia's schedule, I think they win 4 games. Yeah.
Wow.
I don't think the offensive line's terrible, man. The offensive line cannot compete with these defensive lines. So it's going to take really, really excellent quarterback play. It's going to take perfect quarterback play for them. And I don't think that they can hang. You just watch what Michigan was able to do. You look at what the SEC is able to do. There are a number of teams that can run the football as well as Michigan, but also have a quarterback that can throw the ball. So I personally think it would be a big uphill battle for USC.
All right, let's talk about the SEC. And would a Georgia win this weekend against Alabama make Carson Beckett's plus 1,600 on BetMGM jump Jalen Milroe, who's plus 700 on the Heisman odds board? Emory, I'm going to start with you on this one. Is there anything that can happen this weekend outside of injury where Carson Beck jumps Jalen Milroe?
Nah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be about whether or not Carson Beck can make some wild plays, and he just doesn't do that because that's not his game. He's an efficient guy. That's almost trying to like put Jared Goff in an MVP conversation with Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. He's not going to have the wild plays to make you look at his play and be like, oh, wow, Jared Goff, right? It's a team play. And so for a guy like Carson Beck, unless he starts to take off and run or have some insane deep throws, because we know everyone loves a deep ball, it just won't happen because of what Jalen Milroe can do, what Cam Ward has been able to do, and what Travis Hunter is always capable of doing on either side of the football. So it's going to be tough because that's just not how his game is set up. Now, if we're talking Davey O'Brien, absolutely. But if we're talking Heisman, it's going to be tougher for Beck.
Chip, if I'm holding on to that Carson Beck plus 1,600 ticket right now, tell me something good that can happen this weekend that's going to jump me up the board.
Tell me something good. All right. So I think that if you've got a situation where Carson Beck can take advantage of one thing that I do perceive as Alabama's weakness, that's the pass defense, then you're going to see him really start to line up his Heisman stock with his NFL draft stock. Because right now, he still looks like a good prospect, but Georgia's offense, has yet to really look dominant, and he has yet to really be there. He's been missing Ladd McConkey. He's been missing Brock Bowers. It might be an underperformance of the pass catchers that's hurting Carson Beck, but there is a chance where he's able to spread it around and hit those passes that Western Kentucky, that Wisconsin, and that even Byron Brown from USF were not able to hit. I think they are susceptible through the air. So, yeah, I could see that Carson Beck, this is a coming out party. For either one of these guys, because I think Jalen Milroe's going to use his legs a lot in this game. I'm not big on the wrestling, but I understand and respect it. You know how they would have those matches where they'd put like a suitcase of money from like the very, very top and hang it from the ceiling. You got to climb all the way to the top, or the belts hanging from the ceiling. Like the idea that you are a bigger factor in the Heisman Trophy race is absolutely hanging above the field in Bryant-Denny Stadium.
All right, Mike, if I have that Carson Beck paper ticket at plus 1,600 or whatever I got it at earlier in the year, should I just rip it up at this point based on what these guys are saying? There's nothing that Beck can do that's going to jump Jalen Milroe, right?
Yeah, I tend to think so. Yeah, I think the good news is you're early enough in the year, you can still make another investment that might be a better choice here. Look, Carson Beck is fine. Georgia is obviously a fantastic football team, but I personally don't think he's a legitimate Heisman contender, just the way he plays and what they ask him to do. When Georgia wins a big game like this at Alabama, or looking ahead on their schedule, if they go down to Austin and beat Texas, it's not necessarily going to be anything that Carson Beck does. It's going to be solid play from their defense. It's going to put them in a position to win. This Georgia team is very unlikely to go win games scoring 40 points against opponents like this. And you're right. He's missing Brock Bowers. He's missing Lad McConkey. And honestly, I think so far this season, at least, again, it's very small sample size, they're missing a run game. They don't have a really talented run game that they've had in years past. And we'll talk about that a lot more coming up in this show. But when you have situations like that, you're going to simply put too much pressure on them. And you look at the schedule remaining, including this game, but they've still got Texas and Tennessee and Ole Miss. All of those teams are going to be able to push. And if they lose games, he's not the kind of quarterback that has massive highlight reels like Jalen Milroe will. I think he's drawing dead already to win the Heisman, and it's mostly a product of the style of play and the schedule that they've got coming up. Now, on the other side, though, Jalen Milroe can absolutely become a Heisman frontrunner if he has a big performance in this game. And I'm talking 1 to 2 rushing touchdowns, a deep ball, which they will certainly take deep shots and test this Georgia secondary. But Milroe's got far more to gain than Beck does here.
Emory, from a draft perspective, we've talked about this a lot on this program this year. Last week was Quinn Ewers, and you mentioned you don't think he's a first-round pick right now. Where would you put Jalen Milroe and Carson Beck in your rankings?
Beck to me is I have a higher grade on Ewers than Beck. Beck to me is like a mid second round, third round type talent. So that's where I would take him. Milroe, you're banking on the athleticism and the upside that he has shown. Growing from 2022 to 2023 to what we've seen so far from him this year. So that's the kind of guy you kind of want to gamble on. I would take a first round. I would draft him in the first round based off that. Now, where in the first round, that's a different story. But right now, my 3 favorite quarterbacks are Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, and Jalen Milroe. And if you shook a bag up and pull one out, I wouldn't be upset because I could find ways to win with any one of those guys. So Milroe, to me, because we saw growth from 2022 to last year, and we're seeing growth so far this season, a deep ball is still in play. And we know the game is now changed to where you need someone that can get out of dodge. And what I love about Milroe's game, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later, is that he really plays above the X's and O's. So you're never in a bad play with the Jalen Milroe. And that's where you gain an advantage numbers-wise against a defense, especially at the pro level, which we've seen throughout the course of the league since 2016. So it feels like. So Milroe, first round talent, I will take him there. Beck, I feel like there's a lot of Becks in every draft class that doesn't really help you elevate above the X's and O's.
Interesting. A lot of mock drafts I've seen with Beck number 1, so that's good perspective from you. All right, go ahead, M Squared.
Sorry, I have to, because I was talking with a group of people yesterday, asked me the same question on Carson Beck. I said he's a 3rd round draft pick. And I saw a mock draft on Twitter, which we've seen a lot of those floating around, right? And I see Carson Beck is a 1st round draft pick, and the franchise that is taking him in the mock draft, the New York Giants. And I thought, how perfect. That is exactly on brand that they would take Carson Beck as a 1st round pick. But yes, not a legitimate Heisman contender. Not going to be someone that ultimately should be a first 3 round pick, in my opinion. Like 3rd round, middle of the 3rd round. That's where, if I were a team, I would feel comfortable using a draft pick at that point. But a 1st round to me is kind of almost laughable.
Emory, coming back to you for this one. A little bonus storylines here. Travis Hunter, plus 1,600 per BetMGM to win the Heisman Trophy. Made the game-saving play last week in Colorado's comeback against Baylor. Is there value, in your opinion, at that number for Travis Hunter to win the Heisman Trophy?
Absolutely, because he starts on both sides of the ball. It's not like a situation where you had Champ Bailey, where he played a lot of receiver and was leading the team in receiving and was also an All-American defensive back. It's not like Charles Woodson, where he got in on special plays. Hey, we need a big play. Let's put him in on offense. But he was also an All-American defensive back and punt returner. Travis Hunter starts on both sides of the ball and makes plays on both sides of the ball and makes game-changing plays on both sides of the ball consistently. So even though you may have a situation where Colorado may end up with between 6 to 8 wins or 6 to 9 wins, whatever the case may be, and may not be in the college football playoff, may not be in the top 25, his play every week warrants a highlight. And we've seen it so far this year, even in losses. We've seen people talk and showcase something that Travis Hunter has done significantly. Remember, last year, he didn't play the whole season because he got hurt and he missed a couple of weeks. But we're seeing him right now, knock on wood, for the full season. And this dude is a legit game breaker, something I have never seen before.
I mean, there is precedent when Charles Woodson won the Heisman Trophy in 1997. However, his team also won a share of the national championship. Colorado not going to be there. All right, Chip, I promise I didn't forget about you. So UNLV, Matthew Sluka, the quarterback, decides, all right, after 3 games, I'm out. They're not paying me enough money. I'm out of here. So that means we're automatically fading the Running Rebels, right?
No, absolutely not. Look, number one, it's a team that runs the football. And look, Sluka was a part of that, but Emory can tell you about Brennan Marion's offense, right? You literally wrote the book. Yeah. So this is an offense that doesn't necessarily have to throw the football. You just need the athleticism. You just need the ability to provide some diversity in the run game. When it comes to some of his passing yards, a lot of them have come to wide open receivers with 4+ yards of separation, according to some of the advanced numbers. And I tend to look at UNLV. If the public's going to all of a sudden think that everything's crashing down, that's great for me so I can buy up more Rebel stock. Because remember, Sluka was one of 2 transfer quarterbacks that the Rebels added in this class after the loss of Jaden Maeva. So I still think they're a really good football team, and a lot of the things that they do well are still there, even if their disgruntled quarterback has decided to shut it down and preserve his year of eligibility.
Emory, I know you have something to say about that.
Malik Williams, folks, I want to say 3 of his games when he was at Campbell. 1 was against Georgetown and 2 were against Monmouth back when Mike Minter was a head coach, former Carolina Panther, former black shirt Nebraska Cornhusker defensive back. Just a great dude to be around and talk ball with. But Malik Williams, he's about 5'11", 205. It gives you what you had in the run game with Sluka, but also gives you more in the passing game. I also feel like both guys are similar in how they play situationally in terms of, hey, we need this drive. We need to go down and make a play. And I've seen both guys do it at the FCS level. So they're in good shape with Malik Williams, another 6-year guy that has experience.
And so this is the insight that you can get at sportsline.com, not just on the show, but on the website. I mean, I was reading some of Emory's picks explanations even before the show. Just phenomenal. Things that you can learn. And that is why, if you're not a Sportsline member, what are you waiting for? We have a promo code for you. Use promo code WINNERS to get 60% off an annual plan. This is the best deal you can find. We don't even have it that good on the site. So use promo code WINNERS to get 60% off an annual plan to sportsline.com. Coming up next, a pair of ranked versus ranked matchups to start off our games of the week. Which Big 12 team will bounce back and who will fall to 0-2 in conference play? We'll make our top selections here on the Early Edge College Football Pick Show.
Well, you need your sports news anywhere?
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
Welcome back to the Early Edge. And since 2020, when ranked teams face each other, favorites are covering more than 57% of the time. Will that be the case this weekend? We will start in Manhattan, Kansas. And normally I would give our guy M Squared the first word, but we're gonna wait for him a little bit. Chip, I'm gonna let you. You have a pick on the total here. So which way are you going? Over, under?
Disgusting. Just really repulsive stuff from both of these offenses. I mean, like Kansas State should stop throwing the ball. Like we should take this back to 1910 and we should only have like runs and laterals because the forward pass has just not been something that is successful for Kansas State so far. Obviously, I do not look at Kansas State's implosion against BYU as something that the final score is truly reflective of those two teams and their difference. A lot of that's very much game scripted out with mistakes leading to, if they not exact touchdowns, short fields and easy touchdowns for the Cougars. So I do think that Kansas State's offense is in trouble. And then for Oklahoma State, I mean, we said it last week, if this is your season, like if you're not going to be able to come and bring it with all that experience back, with all those yards that Ollie Gordon has had, with all those starts that Oklahoma State offensive line has had, starts together, great continuity. I am just like selling hard on both of these offenses. So I'm going to go on the under for this game.
One thing that's great about this show is we don't always have to agree. And you out there can listen to who you want. You find the best logic and go with it. And one example is this game. And Emory, You are opposite a couple of us in taking Oklahoma State with the points. Why?
Well, Chip nailed the a lot of the points, but here's another thing to think about is when you look at the game last week against Utah. As bad as Oklahoma State played, they still were in that matchup, and it was a few plays here or there, a lot of defensive bust in key situations like the run where Mekhi Bernard broke the defender off in space. We didn't even touch him. That was a key stop potentially that was missed because they fit the run well, just didn't make the tackle. Then you had some big plays in the passing game. You had the scramble by Isaac Wilson. So they played as bad as they could have played on both sides of the ball. Offense was completely ineffective, and it was still a close game. K-State, on the other hand, was very un-K-State like. You talk about the turnovers and penalties, both of which helped doom them in that matchup. So, but if I put these two teams together, I still trust, to Chip's point, the passing game more of Oklahoma State to figure it out at some point. And at some point, they do have the better back in Ollie Gordon, although he hasn't been Ollie Gordon this season. I think this will come down to Alan Bowman versus Avery Johnson. Now, Avery Johnson's legs versus Alan Bowman, that's a matchup heavily slanted toward Johnson. But if it has to come to making plays in the passing game, I kind of like Oklahoma State, and this number is small enough for me to feel like Oklahoma State can get it done. So that's why I'm taking them plus the points.
M squared, I don't even need to introduce. If people watch this show, they know who your favorite team is. Go ahead and tell us who you're picking and why.
Yeah, it's Kansas State here. I made the number up to 6. Look, I think that it's desperation side on both sides because of the way this conference sets up, the season is not over with one loss. It is with 2. For both of these schools, if they lose, either one loses this game, their playoff aspirations are done, in my opinion. We'll see. It could obviously shake out and still work out for either one of them. But I do think that it's, you lose this game, you're done. So if this were on a neutral site or a road game, I'm absolutely backing Oklahoma State. But because this is in Manhattan, Kansas with an 11 a.m. kickoff, early kickoff, I think that's important here. They're talking 11 a.m. local time. It's actually a morning start for this game. I think that's significant when you talk about Kansas State. I think Chip nailed it. I think they're actually going to get back to running the football. They've got 2 excellent running backs in DJ Giddens and Dylan Edwards, and you've obviously got a third running back in Avery Johnson. I think that they're going to continue to be there. And you talk about the uncharacteristic penalties and really just the mistakes on special teams, which is Kansas State's essentially been special teams for the last 20 years. I think that they shore that up a little bit here. So I like that there, but I ultimately think they have success moving the football, running the football. I think the number should be 6. I do think it's going to be a competitive game back and forth, but ultimately I trust the home field advantage and Kansas State moving the football on the ground. So I'll play them here 4.5.
Mike, little trivia question for you. When they last played in Manhattan, these two teams in 2022, do you remember what the score was?
It was high scoring, I believe.
It was 48-0 Kansas State. Now, I'm not laying the 47.5 here, but I am going to lay the 4.5. So in Big 12 versus Big 12 matchups thus far this season, the home team is 7-2 and should be 8-1, if not for my TCU at home against UCF, missing a field goal at the buzzer. Kansas State, despite being blown out last week, only gave up 241 total yards to BYU. And on the season, they're only surrendering a little over 83 yards on the ground, while Oklahoma State is giving up over 180 yards rushing. That's the difference. Kansas State 30, Oklahoma State 22. All right, we have another ranked versus ranked matchup. This is a tough one. Number 15 Louisville at number 16 Notre Dame, who is giving 6.5 points. This is a really, really tough line, in my opinion. We have already heard from you guys in previous weeks about fading Notre Dame. I'm out. But Chip, you're not going to fade Notre Dame specifically. You're going to once again give us a total.
Yeah, because if you need Notre Dame to cover spreads, you need Notre Dame to score touchdowns, and you need to have a more dynamic offense than what Riley Leonard's been able to do. I think that Notre Dame's defense is tremendous, though, and I think that Notre Dame, which has gone under in both of its home games, is going to really cause some problems for Tyler Shuck, the Louisville quarterback. And I think that Jeff Brom, while a tremendous offensive game planner, he has a nice pass the chalk battle, as they say, with Al Golden over there on the other side. Now, they're trying to get a little bit healthier, get Colin Lacey back. I don't know if he will be. Ja'Cory Brooks has looked good against lesser competition, but when he was against Alabama, going up against the best secondaries, getting that separation didn't come as easily. So I tend to think that Louisville's offense is going to be kept in check. Louisville's offense was not tremendous against Georgia Tech last week. In fact, they had a special teams touchdown be able to make that a cover and get them over 30 points. So I see this one being a defensive battle. I say that the most interesting thing here, the Cards as a program went transfer portal heavy again, like more than 20 players coming in from the portal. But where they do have some consistency and some returning production is on the defensive side of the ball. So I think that they're going to be very, very solid there, again, against a one-dimensional Notre Dame offense. So yeah, I'm going to go, this thing was like, I put together a little like social video for SportsLine, and my first draft, I was like 48.5. And then I go to sleep and I wake up and it's 45.5. Okay. So obviously there is somebody else who agrees with me on this one, but at 45.5, we're still above a key number. I'll still take it under 45.5.
Now, Mike, you're going to play a total in this game. And once again, you and Emory are on opposite sides. Which way are you leaning?
Yeah, no total in this one. I'm playing the side, but yes.
No, sorry, on sides. Which way? I know you and Emory are opposite on sides. Which side are you leaning? I'm sorry.
Yeah, leaning Louisville plus 6.5 here. I think the number should be 4. I'm not ready to make Notre Dame that big of a favorite in this particular spot. I do think that it will be a fascinating matchup. I think it'll be good. I do still have questions about the quarterback room for Notre Dame personally. So I do think they're highly locked in. I think they're highly motivated. They had the bad loss. And it is a must-win game on both sides. It's obviously a must-win for Notre Dame, but I say it's a must-win for Louisville when you look at that remaining schedule. Like, I'm not necessarily sure that everyone in that program believes that they're college football playoff bound, but they've got a shot. And I ultimately think that they keep this game competitive, a 1-score kind of game. I think that they're going to have success defensively because I'm not sure Riley Leonard is it at quarterback right now. So I personally just like the Louisville side, but it's mostly just the number. If this were 4, I'd be completely off of it, but at 6.5, I don't think Notre Dame's scoring a ton of touchdowns here, as evident by really they weren't able to cover against Miami of Ohio last week. I think we see somewhat of a similar game here.
But Emory, in the last 2 weeks, Notre Dame has outscored their opponents 94-10. So you're buying into the Fighting Irish
against this opponent. That's where I'm buying in, because this game to me will look a lot like what we just watched with Michigan and USC. Similar style, similar philosophy, similar type of point of attack play for one side, where the other side will have to prove it time and time again, over and over and over. And no one wants to have a physical discussion at the line of scrimmage on a Saturday. Nobody wants to do that. And that's where Louisville, I feel like, will get tested early. They'll be stout. And then over the course of a game, they'll just wear down. And Notre Dame's run game will wear them out. I actually think because Notre Dame's defense can shut down Louisville's offense, Notre Dame could win this game by 10 points. That helps me cover, and it helps them move on and stay alive in the postseason playoff picture until they play Notre Dame, until they play Army or Navy or both.
Well, we know who you're picking in Notre Dame and Army. I mean, you can already just give us the Army, whatever the points are.
I was about to say, like, where are you going with this, EC? We are Team Army here.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah. Well, no, I know Emory is Team Army. Every week it's an Army pick, and I'm sure we'll have one later in the show. I hate to admit it, guys. I'm copping out on this pick. I'm taking Notre Dame on the money line. I know it's minus 225. Here's why. I have Notre Dame winning this game 27-21, which is right on the number, and I just don't feel confident in either side, total or spread, to make a pick here. Louisville has a 4-game losing streak against top 25 teams. Notre Dame has won 18 straight games, or 18. I think it's 18 straight home games against ACC teams. I believe it is. Last loss 2016. Say what you want about Notre Dame, but their defense has only given up 37 total points this season. I'm buying in. I just am not sure I'm buying in that much. All right, so if you really want to play that money line play or any one of those other plays, do so at BetMGM, because new BetMGM customers can sign up today and get up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Just place your first wager of at least $10, and you'll receive up to $1,500 instantly if your bet loses with bonus code EDGE. That's EDGE, EDGE. Now, we're not done with the Week 5 top matchups. Alabama has beaten Georgia in 8 of the last 9 meetings, but Nick Saban isn't around anymore. Will the trend continue? Find out next on the Early Edge.
A Quiet Place Day 1 is now streaming on Paramount+. It's thrilling, terrifying. It will make your heart pound out of your chest. A Quiet Place Day 1, now streaming.
Back on the Early Edge, and I know the game that we really want to talk about, but we'll start this segment with a ranked versus ranked affair in the Big Ten. Do you remember the last time Penn State played Illinois in Happy Valley? I don't blame you if you don't. Chip, do you remember what that score was? How many overtimes was that?
9 overtimes.
And the final score was?
What, like 16-13 or something like that?
20-18.
20-18. There we go.
That's just sad that they couldn't, but that's college football's rules. All right.
Whoa. That was amazing theater.
No,
Listen,
give me the.
Do
start
not
at the 25.
No. Do not yuck my yum. Okay. If I want to watch some sicko stuff like 9 overtimes and a score that don't hit 21, that's for me. There's a corner of the internet for everyone, and there's a little bit of college football for everyone. Okay. Some of us like it.
Bring me back the Texas A&M LSU days of 7 overtimes where they're playing from the 25. Don't give me this 2-yard line garbage. All right, Emory, you're going to start us off. It's a lot of points, 17.5 against a ranked team, and you're going to lay it with the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, this will be a slow chokeout situation here for Penn State. I could see Penn State winning this one late as they continue to wear down both Illinois' offense and defense. I could see this one being 31-10, something like that, because Penn State's offensive attack can beat you in a multitude of ways, the passing game and the run game. And on defense, they can get pressure, they can cover. And Luke Altmaier, to his credit, has played better than what he did last season. Although it's not as clean as you would like it, it doesn't seem like he's playing better. It's almost like what we're watching with Syracuse's Kyle McClure up until last weekend's debacle against Stanford. So I just feel like this is the time where the clock strikes 12 against the Illini, and Penn State slowly is able to pull away late. I like them big, so I will lay these points comfortably.
But Chip, everything Emory said is great, and I agree with a lot of it. That's a lot of points for a ranked versus ranked matchup.
Yeah, that's too many daggone points when you got Zach Franklin and Pat Bryant out there. I mean, that's the thing that stands out to me. Luke Altmaier has done a really good job. 10 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, great steps forward. But I think that what's his name? Barry Lunny. I was like, Lunny. Yeah, came over from UTSA before. Zach Franklin was with him at UTSA 2 years ago. They've done a really good job of constructing this so that Illinois has been able to have that downfield passing attack working. And I understand that KJ Winston, the Penn State star defensive back, is more of a run stopper from the safety position, but his loss is something that I have taken note of. A Penn State defense that I think is better up front than it is on the back end, that is better stopping the run than they are with the pass. I mean, do we remember Connor Bazelak being able to go out there and sling it around just a little bit against Penn State a couple weeks ago? Penn State should win. I think Penn State is awesome. I think this is too many daggone points for an Illinois team that has at every point this season, literally every point this season, been underrated. 3-0-1 against the spread, covering the spread by 10.9 points per game. I don't think the numbers are caught up yet. So give me Illinois plus the 17 and a hook.
All right, so Mike, there's a lot of points that we heard. Obviously, Chip say there's too many points that Illinois is getting. I think there are too many points in the over/under that the odds makers are assigning here. Would you agree?
I do agree. I mean, I think the concern is if Penn State is firing on all cylinders offensively, they put up 40 on their own late. That's my big concern. But ultimately, I made the total 44. So I did go under the total 47.5. I do lean in Emory's direction a little bit in terms of this being a spot where Illinois struggles. So I do like their team total under 14.5 as well. If they get there, I think it's going to be multiple field goals. I don't think Illinois is getting multiple touchdowns in this game. I really don't. I think this thing moves slow. I think this clock is moving ultimately. So I do like the under in this game, but I think Illinois, while they've been undervalued so far to start this season, this is a massive step up in class. We're talking about a Penn State team that still has continued to threaten to basically be a favorite in the Big Ten Conference. And I think we see more of that here. So I like the under in the game and leaning under on that team total for Illinois as well.
You know what? I'm going to agree with you, Mike, and with Chip. I think this game is going to be a slugfest. The Illini are only giving up 12.5 points a game. Penn State 13. Both teams allowing under 300 total yards per game on average. So I'm rolling with the under 47.5. Give me Penn State 26, Illinois 14. Under that 14.5 team total that you had mentioned, Mike. Sorry, Chip. But hey, at least they're covering the 17.5. Emory, my apologies. All right. Georgia, Alabama. These are the games that make college football as great as they are. No offense to the NFL, but there's nothing in the NFL, in my opinion, that compares to a game like this. The meaning, the conference, everything about it, the pageantry around it. Number 2, Georgia. Number 4, Alabama. 100-something thousand people in Tuscaloosa. Absolutely love it. Mike, I'm going to start with you. What is your pick on this game?
I'm going to be on the Bama side here. I played it at 2.5. You can still find a 2.5 out there. Still like it at 1.5. When I look at this particular matchup here, I get why there's interest on both sides, right? You're going to hear this all week, no matter where you're looking. How often do you get Bama as a home underdog? Sure. How often do you get Georgia under a field goal? Sure. Both extremely valid points, right? These two programs are incredible. I will push back a bit when you said Nick Saban is gone. Mr. Nick Saban is absolutely not gone. He is still an advisor to this team with an office in the building. And I guarantee you, he's had multiple meetings this week ahead of this matchup. He still is very, very invested in the outcome of Alabama football games at this point. It's a little difficult because he has a lot of media obligations to not act that way, but he is still heavily invested in the outcome of Alabama football. As far as this game, though, I'm not a big Carson Beck guy, and I don't think Georgia can run the football like they have in years past. I am not a big ETN fan, and I really think the depth behind them is what they're lacking. And it's not just that, though. It would be enough to get by if they had that elite run game that they've had over the last 10, 15 years. I just don't think they have it. And when you combine that with the loss of Brock Bowers and Lab McConkey, I worry about this team if they're not playing from in front. If they fall down 10 points to Bama and become extremely one-dimensional, I think that's where it gets ugly. And I also think that we're going to see a special performance from Jalen Milroe. I think the home field advantage is significant. I mean, obviously, you look at this matchup here, it's going to be the biggest football game of the year in college football outside of the national title itself. So for me, I'm back in Bama here. I think they should be a 2-point favorite, and them as a 2-point favorite, when you account for home field advantage, that actually says that Georgia is still the better football team on a neutral field. And I think that's a fair assessment of this particular matchup. So give me Bama with the points.
Emory, are you with him?
Yes, and I'm taking Bama on the money line. I just listen, Mike laid out a bunch of great points, because if you really boil it down to what we saw last between these two teams, Milroe superseded expectations and just outplayed Georgia. And when you also factor in coming to this ball game, Alabama has the better backs. Their duo is fantastic. They have game breakers in the backfield combined with the running talents of Jalen Milroe. And Georgia is banged up defensively a little bit coming into this ball game. And when you factor all of those points in, and they'll be able to get after Carson Beck, Bama has the better receivers in this matchup. I feel like Bama is the better team pound for pound coming into this ball game, and they'll show that out on the field. I also feel like Bama can win by double digits.
You know what's crazy to me, though, Emory? The last team to score a touchdown against Georgia was Alabama. They haven't given up an offensive touchdown to their opponents in 4 games, which is wild. Chip, all right, we're not gonna talk about defense here. Let's talk about offense. Where do you stand?
First of all, I think full game over is live. I think we're going to see some haymakers back and forth. I'm hinted at this earlier, but Alabama's defense, in particular, their pass defense, can be had. There have been wide open wide receivers. They've got youth. They've got inexperience. And with extra time to prepare for this, if Georgia's passing attack cannot take advantage of that, well, then Georgia's not even the second best team in the SEC. Then Georgia is like way further back than we thought. So I think that there is going to be a lot of opportunities here for the Bulldogs to be able to hit enough splash plays to be able to score. But you mentioned, we've got Mykel Williams dealing with an ankle injury. Warren Brinson, I think, has been back at practice this week. The loss of Tate Ratledge is significant and something that we're looking at certainly for Georgia's offensive line. But all of this has me thinking that Jalen Milroe's going to be running for his life, but being able to make great plays. Love a Jalen Milroe rushing yards over if you've got player props in your state or a similar opportunity. And I kind of think that as these two teams exchange haymakers, we start to get close to the 30s. So with the Georgia passing attack against an Alabama pass defense that is vulnerable, my best bet is Georgia team total over. But I like full game over as well if you want to play that.
Man, I am opposite all three of you, and that is not a good sign for me. I love Georgia at -1.5, but I'm picking Georgia 24, Alabama 16. And sorry, Chip, a half a point off there. Let me explain why. Georgia, 9 straight regular season wins off a bye. 6 straight road wins or 6 straight wins against AP top 5 opponents. The last 2 by 58 and 60. I don't know if that really matters much in this particular case. 16 straight road wins. And I trust Kirby Smart's defense a lot more and I don't know if this is fair, than Kalen DeBoer's offense. That's
Ooh,
why I say
I just
really. They haven't given up a touchdown in 4 games.
Kalen DeBoer is better offensive coaching than Alabama has had since Lane Kiffin left.
I still trust that Georgia defense, and I think they step up big time. So I'm picking Georgia 24, Alabama 16. Listen, and maybe I'm off here, and it is a high-scoring game, but I love Georgia either way. I love the Bulldogs. We'll see if I'm right. Revenge angle. As I mentioned, Alabama's won 8 of the last 9, not on Saturday. All right, we've gone through the top games, but it's now time to see our week 4 or week 5. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have the hurricane? Are you doing the hurricane tracking right now?
I am not. No.
No, I thought that's what Mike's about to come in with, because Helene, I've heard varying. There's 2 different beliefs on whether or not this storm is going to impact this game, and if so, how much. And so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Mike.
Mike, go ahead. What is there something on that we can play or an angle?
He might have something else.
Go ahead if you've got it, Chip. That's it's all good. I want to hear more about the hurricane. It is a factor. I think it's going to be a factor, but it's still too early, unfortunately, to really know. So I'm not going to speculate too much.
Oh, I'm going to speculate.
Other than to say that it's,
hell yeah, I'm going to speculate. See, I think the fear it has people running to buy the milk and eggs and has this total being driven down. I think that if you get the all clear, we'll see the total start to go back up to somewhere in the mid 50s.
So if it does hit and we're talking wet field and rain, right? Who does that favor?
Alabama.
To me, it's Bama by a mile.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah,
Georgia's defense? No.
Run the football. Alabama's got the big advantage with a mobile quarterback and 2 running backs that and a home field. So yeah, for me, it's Bama with the weather for sure.
I didn't even consider this hurricane. So great point there. All right, we've gone through the top games. Now it's time to see our week.
Man lives in Arizona. He ain't never got to deal with that.
I don't have to worry about that. Listen, we had 1 hurricane, Chip, one time in Arizona during an Arizona,
Louisiana,
Wisconsin game.
Tennessee, and North Carolina. We're used to tracking all that action out there.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about that out here. All right, coming up next, it's our week 5 best bets. Find out next here on the Early Edge.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
Highlights and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
Sure. What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
All right, it is time for our best bets here on the Early Edge. Let's take a look at the recap screen. Not necessarily our best last week. Now, listen, I don't like to pat myself on the back often. I am 2 points away from being 7-1. I'm just going to say, so close on that total. Why is Georgia Southern kicking a late field goal? Nonetheless, it is time for us to run the board this week. Emory, we're going to start with you with your first pick, but I'm going to give a tease here. You've talked about this team over and over and over, and they keep cashing for you. Who is it?
It's the Army Black Knights, man. And here's the reason why. And a lot of times when people talk about these games and, well, how could you say this about this team? They only played X, Y, and Z. When you watch how they play and how they dominate the games that are on the schedule, you notice something. In week 1, when I saw what they did Lehigh, and knowing a lot about Lehigh's offense because I called their game against Monmouth, they started like 15 freshmen / sophomores. So I knew coming in, all those dudes that played have now game experience. They got better as the season went on late last year, being freshmen and sophomores. Army dominated these guys, juxtaposed to Air Force struggling with Merrimack, who's decent, but not Lehigh. And so I was like, listen, Army looks outstanding. And then you look at what they've done every subsequent week, to the point where I was already ready to declare a winner. Like, Army will be undefeated by the time they get to Notre Dame. And so right now, the next roadblock is Temple. And Temple hasn't been good this year. So lay these points with the Fighting Irish, 13.5 points. They'll get up quickly. They even covered the over last week with how many times they scored the ball. So very impressive about the Black Knights. This is a legit football team that can find their way in the college football playoffs. I am ready for the chaos.
Yeah, because that would be major chaos because their game against Navy is a week after the rankings are supposed to be. That would be college football anarchy. All right, Mike, you're up next with a game we just talked about in the first quarter. You have a play.
Yeah, I got Bama money line first quarter, minus 102. Playing it over the spread here in this one. Game's tied. It's a push. The bet is refunded. But when I look at Alabama here, it's home field advantage. And Georgia, the one thing we've known about them already again this season, but really a lot of the time in the regular season, this is a team that has started slow. They continue to not be able to score points early in games. You look at this particular season so far, they had just 6 points in the first half against Clemson. They had 3 points in the first half against Kentucky. I know that this is a much different matchup and they've obviously had time to prepare for it, but I like the way Alabama will start here. You get scripted drives, you get the home field advantage. That's where I expect the home field advantage to actually come in. I think it obviously matters late in game and situations there, but it also matters to start the game. When you're talking about being Carson Beck and having that team on the road dealing with noise, we're talking primetime game here. That's where I expect the false start penalty. That's where I expect the miscommunication is early in this game. So I like Bama to win the first quarter here. I look for another slow start from Georgia and not really show too much. I think they're definitely going to try and run the football early. So give me Bama here, who I think does take a deep shot with Jalen Milroe on the first possession of this game.
Chip, are the Hurricanes really that good?
The Miami Hurricanes? Yeah.
They are?
100%. Cam Ward is that dude. We have not seen dynamic quarterback play at Miami in a long time. Have y'all seen the clip of him telling the defense where the ball's going and them scoring the touchdown anyway? He gets to the line of scrimmage. He leans in between the A gap and the B gap. He looks at the defensive lineman and says, yeah, we're coming right here, because that's what they needed. They needed that cherry on top. Mario Cristobal built this thing up at the line of scrimmage, but he didn't have any fast cars. Speaking of fast cars, how about that defense? They tried out like four defensive ends as defensive linemen. You know, they had the NASCAR package for the New York Giants back in the day. Since it's Miami, I call it the F1 package. And they could just get out there and get after the passer. The athleticism, the talent. I mean, this is a different group, and the quarterback takes them over the top. I had the under 65.5 in Miami USF. You may remember that game finished 50-15. And after that half-point sweat, I am done doing anything other than counting on that Miami offense to do their part. Virginia Tech's defense is cheeks, and I think that Virginia Tech has been horribly mismanaged coming into this year on that side of the ball. They need some new assistant coaches, and Miami's going to get to a 40-burger.
So you'll be my parents' favorite this week, both graduates of the University of Miami. So nicely done, Chip. Normally Emory is with his talk about Cam Ward, but I think you surpassed him just for this week only. All right. My first pick, Oklahoma -2 at Auburn. Forget that the fact that they're starting a true freshman in Michael Hawkins Jr. Is this a must-win game for both teams to reach a bowl? Oklahoma likely to be underdogs in 5 of their last 7. Auburn's schedule, I won't read it for you. Good luck finding 4 wins the rest of the way. But here's why I'm going to play the Sooners confidently here. Oklahoma has the most forced turnovers in college football with 12. Auburn has the most turnovers in college football with 14. I mean, that seems like simple. One has forced 12, one has lost 14, one has a +7 turnover margin, the other has a -10. Oklahoma 27, Auburn 17. All right, back around to you, Emory. Your next pick is
James Madison of the Sun Best Conference, fresh off a beatdown of North Carolina. And I know a lot of times this year we've seen teams not be able to handle success. Northern Illinois, Toledo, my Louisiana Raging Cajuns, right? And so, and Tulane, for that matter as well. Memphis, we can go on and on. A lot of teams haven't been able to handle success, but this team will be able to handle success because the matchup dictates that they'll handle success. They won't score 70 against Ball State, but this team now, based on what I just listed of the amount of teams that have fallen because they haven't been able to have success, JMU now finds themselves staring right in the pole position spot to let's get this G5 playoff bid. So they have a chance to really run the table and get into the postseason. Bob Chesney, who I've covered a lot at Holy Cross, got to interview him. He's like the college version of Sean McVay, high energy guy, motivated guy, really gets those dudes galvanized and ready to go. He'll have them ready to go against Ball State. So I have no problems laying this 20.5 and walking away. I tell you this, on SportsLine last week, I laid 37.5, or something like that. It was 34.5. I laid against Harvard against Stetson, and Harvard won 35-0. So I just cash. But this one I definitely feel confident about because JMU will be ready to go. Coach Chesney he's done it at Assumption, he's done it at Holy Cross, and he's doing it right now at JMU.
Oh, I love JMU, Emory. They made me look smart for once on this program last week. All right, M squared. Ole Miss in the first quarter has been a phenomenal bet thus far this season. They're just annihilating teams. So what are you giving us this week?
I'm looking at Ole Miss in the first quarter. Once again, -6.5 here. Look, I think that we could see this spot where they absolutely destroy Kentucky. I'm talking easy cover, even on the 17.5. It's 17.5 for a reason. And I think some people might see that and wonder, oh, is Georgia actually any good? Georgia is good, spoiler alert, but this is a tough matchup for them. Ole Miss continues to be awesome offensively. It is a home game for them. Another early kickoff, 11 a.m. I love this particular spot for Ole Miss. I think they're going to be there offensively, and they've been there offensively early in games. You mentioned that Georgia team that hasn't given up a touchdown. Ole Miss has given up one touchdown this year. It was to Georgia Southern when they were already up 17-0 in the game. And the reason that they gave up that touchdown, it was a one-play drive. So I love this particular spot for Ole Miss. I think that their defense is highly underrated, and I think this offense is going to continue to rack up points. So I am not a Kentucky fan at all. I do not think they're a good football team at all. I think Ole Miss has the foot on the pedal early. We know what we're going to see from Lane Kiffin, Jackson Dart. It's going to be extreme offensive efficiency here. So yeah, give me Ole Miss -6.5 in the first quarter.
Chip, I feel about Michigan like the rest of you feel about Notre Dame this year, but you happen to like them a lot this week.
Well, there's two parts to every college football game, right? You know, there's a home team and there's a visiting team. And so you might not like the home team. So then tell me, EC, where is your confidence in Minnesota? Like, they just let Caleb Johnson run all over them. And now you're going to introduce a Michigan team playing with confidence. They know who they are, and they're going to be able to hit you with Khalil Mull. Like, I think Caleb Johnson might be one of the best running backs in the country. But when you take everything that Michigan offers from Khalil Mullings, Alex Orji, and Donovan Edwards, like, they are just going to do the exact same thing and run the ball right through this Minnesota team. And look, the Minnesota's offense is not good. And so that means that the Wolverines, which had one of their better defensive performances of the season, are going to absolutely put the clamps on them as well. This is how Sharon Moore turns this thing around, is you take everything that you did with that huge win. Like, Michigan fans around Ann Arbor were like a little bit tentative going into that game. Now, all of a sudden, you were able to have that game-winning drive. I don't think there's any kind of letdown because Minnesota is not the team to snatch them there. So, yeah, I go Michigan. I think they win this by double digits.
Fair enough. No argument there. PJ Fleck, hot seat. Might be time to start talking about it. All right, I'm going Oregon, UCLA over 55.5. A late night special for you. Some teams just like to play high-scoring games against one another. 8 of the last 9 meetings between these two teams have gone over this number, including 73, 65, and 75 in their last 3. The only problem is, another problem is UCLA's defense, horrible against the pass this season, giving up nearly 300 yards a game. Will Dylan Gabriel throw for 400 or more? Oregon 48, UCLA 17. All right, which Week 5 favorites are on upset alert? Can Emory Hunt pick his 4th upset winner? And can I get one for the 3rd straight week? We'll find out who coming up next.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
Highlights and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
Sure. What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
All right, here we go. It is upset picks time here, the segment I wait for. Listen, Emory started it off, hit 3 in a row. Then he ventured outside FBS. Well, Florida A&M was in the game for a while. I got James Madison. Not sure I thought they would actually win at plus 315. Sorry, Chip, North Carolina. Not sure what to say about that. Emory, you're going to start us off this week. I don't like going against UCF at home, but you're going to.
Yeah, listen, here's what teams have to follow what they are good at and what they should do to win football games, but ego always comes into play, and that's how they end up getting upset. All Michigan had to do against App State was run the ball because you were bigger up front than App State. Now they want to show that they can throw the football too, and now you found yourself in a speed athleticism game that you couldn't win. All UCF has to do is run the football against Colorado. But what they will not do is run the football because they want to show that they can throw the ball too. That's exactly what Colorado wants you to do, because now you get those quick 3-and-outs, and Shedeur Sanders and company with that passing game will make this one a contest. And it's going to be cool to see this defense where their strength is a secondary, and they've been better this year a little bit versus the run, more so than last year and more so than what we saw against Nebraska. I thought they played a solid defensive game against Baylor. Baylor had the kickoff return for a touchdown, but when you take that away, they did a good job defensively, and we saw these guys really start to believe that they can play good defense. I think that's going to come back and bite a UCF. I like Colorado plus 450 to go down to Orlando and get one on the road.
Interesting. Mike, you talked about this one earlier in the show. Louisville, Notre Dame.
Yeah, I'm going to back Louisville here. I'm just not sold on Notre Dame, especially in games where they could potentially have to score a lot of points. So when you look at Louisville, they're a team that can definitely put up points. We'll see against this competition, but we know Notre Dame's defense has been solid, but it's really been the offense that has struggled to produce at times. Outside of the one game, it was the game after they lost. Makes a lot of sense. It was a huge bounce back opportunity for them. But this is a step up in competition really on both sides. And I think Louisville, if they can contend early in this game, I think that they can parlay that into a win. They've got to play from in front, but if they come out with a quality scripted drive and put some points on the board early, even just a field goal, I think it goes a long way in this matchup, because I'm not sold on Riley Leonard. I think this is a game that Notre Dame still tries to run the football a lot, has a lower scoring vibe as much as they possibly can. So I think Louisville is going to be within 10 points at any given moment in this game. And because of that, I think they are live for an outright upset. I don't have them winning outright. I have the number at this game 4. Notre Dame definitely the better team in this one, but I think Louisville is going to be within a striking distance and one big play away from really stealing this football game.
Chip, I know you live out on the East Coast. It's late at night. You miss Pac-12 after dark. Washington State last week, double overtime. I don't even know how to describe what I saw with the 54-52 double OT win against San Jose State. But you like him again this week at Boise State and the best running back in the country, Emory Hunt's favorite, Ashton Jeanty?
Well, I mean, Boise State's got to defend John Mateer. Come on now. I mean, this is a Cougars group that went into Husky Stadium in Seattle and grinded their feet on the couch. I mean, this is a Cougars team that has had a chip on their shoulder all season long. And this is a Cougars team that is absolutely live to win against Boise State, a team that struggles to get stops defensively, is a little bit of a one-trick pony offensively. Even if that one-trick pony is a daggum thoroughbred like Triple Crown winner, it still is a lot hinging on those shoulders of Ashton Jeanty. And so, yeah, I think Washington State is definitely live to be able to go in there and get the win on the Smurf turf. So you talk about late night this, late night that. I mean, the Cover 3 podcast goes live at 11:30 p.m. Eastern time, and we've been running for like an hour and a half, an hour 40. This game is going to be one of the biggest impediments to me being able to deliver the goods to everybody, because it's on this screen right here. Live reactions all throughout the show. Yeah, so come watch us, youtube.com/cover3. We'll be watching Wazoo take down Boise State and recapping the day.
I deserve that for my bad introduction at the beginning of the show. All right, I'm going Western Kentucky plus 340 at Boston College. I'll take a 315 and raise you a plus 340 this week. So let's draw a line through their first game, that 63-0 loss to Alabama. But here's the thing about Boston College. Does their win over Florida State look as good? Does their close loss to Missouri look as good now that Vandy did the same? And they barely won against Michigan State last week. Western Kentucky in their last 3, averaging 480 yards per game. Watch out for their backup quarterback, Caden Veltkamp, replacing the injured TJ Finley. The SportsLine model has this one 30-26 Boston College. It's a little closer than the 13-point line. Wonder why. I'm going for my third straight upset pick. Let's hit it here. All right, let's recap our upset picks this week. Emory Hunt going Colorado plus 450 at UCF. Mike McClure on Louisville plus 180 at Notre Dame. Chip just told us why. Washington State plus 225 at Boise State. And I'm going Western Kentucky plus 340 at Boston College. Guys, another great show full of awesome picks. For Chip Patterson, Emory Hunt, and Mike McClure, I am Eric Cohen. Thanks for watching the Early Edge College Football Picks Show. And as I always like to say, let's hit it big. Good luck.